I'm a low-key sucker for a rom-com. I'm the guy that says, no, 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 and then my girlfriend has it playing on the TV and then I'm suddenly 1000% invested. And this rom-com, Anyone But You, was on my radar partly because of some dating drama and rumors, and it was a rom-com that was going to be released in cinemas. A weird feeling since so many rom-coms seem to have been relegated to only good enough to go straight to streaming these days. Anyone But You is definitely a standard rom-com. It's not trying to be anything else. The plot is about Ben, played by Glenn Powell, and B, played by Sydney Sweeney, having an amazing one-night stand together, but then through some form of miscommunication, they just never spoke again, and ended up hating each other. But by some chance, they end up going to the same wedding in Australia, and they have to pretend to be a couple in order to please their friends and family. Ooh, I wonder how this ends. The movie is fine. It's got some funny gags and physical comedy, and it has some tender and sincere moments. But the basic premise of the movie relies on this really questionable foundation, and the conflict throughout it all seems to be pretty unreasonable. Literally, the problem between B and Ben could have been resolved in one honest conversation. But rom-coms need to be graded on a curve, so compared to rom-coms getting pumped out by Netflix, Anyone But You definitely feels more polished and has a more elevated vibe. Plus, it was set in Sydney, which is home for me. And as is the case for every rom-com, and especially with the ones with plot lines that you can just predict a mile away, a lot hinges on the chemistry between the leads. Sydney Sweeney does a pretty good job to flesh out a character that on the surface is pretty rash and pretty rude, and she actually makes her pretty likable. She's clearly been on the rise since the second season of Euphoria, where she really showed her range and ability to play on that razor-thin edge of sanity and unhinged. Honestly, I feel like she has a lot to give, but it's hard for that to come out in a character like B, or what I expect to be the character she'll be playing in Madam Web. I definitely hope to see her play some more complicated roles in the future. With Glenn Powell, he just has a face that seems so punchable, yet you just can't hate the guy. Like, upon first glance, immediately he's categorized as like a douchebag, but he's just so full of charisma and charm, and he doesn't take himself too seriously. I definitely do see him as a future staple leading man, especially like in this rom-com space. The chemistry though, well, I was expecting absolute fireworks because of all the dating rumors, but the chemistry didn't quite come through for me in this one. Yeah, like, they're hot, but what else do they really like about each other? What is so shocking about this film is how big of a hit it was in the box office. The budget was $25 million, and on the opening weekend, it only brought in $6 million at the domestic box office, which is pretty bad, and it was looking pretty bleak. But the next weekend, it earned $8.7 million, and then the following, it earned $9.7 million, steadily increasing because of word of mouth and social media buzz. By the sixth weekend, the domestic gross was over $70 million, outgrossing many domestic titles from 2023, including Killers of the Flower Moon and Napoleon. It's now surpassed over $100 million in the global box office, which is damn impressive for its budget. So how did it succeed in the box office? Looking at the marketing, the initial teaser was an absolute mess. They ended up releasing a new trailer that had a completely different feeling, and they also made an intro for that trailer that got parodied by Nathan Fielder and Emma Stone for The Curse. So why were people going to the cinemas to watch this movie? Especially when I thought the marketing efforts were fairly weak, although you can't deny there was a lot of it. I do think there are two major factors. One, the marketable leads, and two, superhero fatigue. Sydney Sweeney's profile has risen greatly over the last year, and Glenn Powell is coming off the supporting role of Hangman in Top Gun Maverick, which became the second highest grossing movie of 2022 with a worldwide gross of $1.49 billion. They're both very good looking people and have very recognizable faces. And on top of that, all the dating rumors between Powell and Sweeney, and all the saucy pictures coming out of the set, and the fact that Powell was actually going through a split with his ex-fiancée, so of course people were just genuinely curious about what really happened, and they wanted to see how real the chemistry was. And this obviously was setting TikTok on fire, and 2023 was the year where a lot of superhero movies in the cinemas absolutely bombed. I mean, no one was safe. The audience has just gotten tired of the formulaic shtick of superhero films and are looking for something different when they're going to the theater. The studios have consistently tried to spend $250 million to make $1 billion by making the most broadly appealing superhero movies that can fetch them cash overseas and in merchandise. But it's clear from what has happened through 2023 that this is coming to an end, and people are looking for different flavors. While Anyone But You is by no means gonna be considered a classic rom-com for the ages, I think people aren't opposed to watching some attractive people do some funny stuff in a beautiful place, as opposed to a green screen battle for the universe with a billion explosions for the 100th time. Sydney Sweeney might not have saved the rom-com genre, but the success of Anyone But You is definitely an indication for how audiences are shifting away from what have been recently guaranteed hits and are now open to going to the cinema for raunchy rom-coms. Anyways, hopefully that all made sense. For more analysis, check out this video right here. Thanks again. Bye.